Amina had always lived a simple life. Her days were steady, predictable, and filled with small routines that kept her calm. She worked at a small stitching shop near her home, helping women with clothes, embroidery, and small repairs. Her hands moved fast, and people often said she had a gift for neat work. She liked her quiet world. She liked knowing what each day would bring. She liked feeling safe, but that month, something felt different. At first, she ignored it, telling herself it was just tiredness or stress. The shop had been busy, and she hadn't taken a proper rest in weeks. She thought that maybe she just needed a few hours of sleep. But the feeling didn't go away. Her body felt strange. Her heart beat faster than it should. Some mornings she woke up feeling heavy. Other days she felt lightheaded. She didn't tell anyone. Not even her closest friend. She kept it inside, hoping the feeling would pass. One morning, when she was preparing breakfast, her hand suddenly stopped in midair. It was a simple realization, but it hit her like a wave. She sat down slowly, her breath catching in her chest. She knew she couldn't ignore the signs anymore. Something was happening, and she needed to face it. That afternoon, she quietly went to a small clinic on the edge of town. The nurse spoke kindly, asked a few questions, and then gave her instructions. Amina followed them with shaking hands. The results didn't take long. "You're pregnant," the nurse said gently. Amina felt the room tilt for a moment. The words were simple, but they felt heavy. She stared at the paper in her hands for a long time. Her fingers felt cold. Her throat felt tight. She didn't say anything at first. She just nodded slowly as if the news needed time to settle in her heart. On her way back home, every step felt different. The world around her looked the same: children running near the shops, men loading hay, women buying vegetables, but something inside her had changed completely. She held the folded report close to her chest, both scared and strangely hopeful. She didn't know what the future would look like now, but she knew this was real. This was happening. That evening, she sat on her bed with the paper still in her hand. She thought about Rayan. Rayan was known all over the town. People spoke about him with respect. He owned a ranch on the outskirts, big land, horses, cattle, and workers who followed his commands without question. He was calm most days but firm when needed. His voice carried weight. His decisions were quick. He lived alone on the ranch, and though he wasn't unfriendly, he kept a distance from people. He preferred to stay focused on his work. Amina had known him for a while. Their interactions were not dramatic or loud. They were simple moments, small conversations, shared glances, thoughtful gestures. He wasn't expressive, but he was attentive in his own quiet way. At least, that's how she had seen him. Telling him this news felt difficult. She didn't know how he would react. She didn't know if he would be shocked, angry, confused, or calm. She hoped he would handle it with responsibility. She hoped he would understand her situation, but fear kept pulling at her thoughts. It took her 2 days to gather the courage to meet him. She walked to his ranch in the late afternoon. The sun was low, and the air carried the smell of hay. Workers moved around, finishing their tasks. She hesitated near the gate, wondering if she should turn back, but then she took a deep breath and continued walking. Rayan saw her from a distance and frowned slightly, not in anger but in curiosity. It was unusual for her to visit the ranch without notice. "Amina," he said as he came closer. "Is everything okay?" His voice was calm, steady as always, but her heart raced. She felt her palms sweat. She nodded slowly and said, "I need to tell you something important." He led her to a quiet spot near the stable, away from the workers. The horses shifted gently behind them, making soft sounds that filled the silence. Rayan stood with his arms crossed loosely, waiting for her to speak. Amina tried to find the right words. Her voice trembled a little. I found out something. I went to the clinic." Rayan watched her carefully. She opened her hand and showed him the folded paper. He didn't touch it at first. He just looked at her face. trying to read her expression. "I'm pregnant," she said. The words came out softly, but they felt like they echoed across the ranch. Rayan didn't react immediately. His face remained still, but his eyes changed. There was a flicker of surprise, real surprise. For a moment, he looked like he had forgotten how to speak. Then he slowly took the paper from her hand and unfolded it. He stared at the report, reading it with a serious expression. The silence stretched between them. Amina's heart felt tight. She didn't expect him to smile or celebrate, but she had hoped he would say something comforting, something reassuring. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. Amina looked down at her hands. She felt vulnerable standing there, waiting for a response that she couldn't predict. Rayan took a step back, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't expect this. It's sudden," she nodded quietly. "I know. It was unexpected for me too." He let out a long breath. His calm nature seemed shaken for the first time since she had known him. "I need time to think," he said. "I need to understand what this means. What we should do." Amina felt something inside her sink. She had hoped he would at least stay and talk. But instead, he looked overwhelmed, like someone who wanted to escape before the weight became too heavy. "Okay," she whispered. "Take your time. Take 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 your time." He nodded but didn't speak further. He folded the report carefully and handed it back to her. Then he walked a few steps away, looking out toward the fields as if the open land could give him answers. Amina stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. She had given him the truth, and now she could only wait. She left the ranch quietly, her heart heavier than when she had arrived. As she walked back home, she tried to stay strong, but doubts filled her mind. Would he support her? Would he distance himself? Would he step up or pull away further? She didn't know. She only knew that the silence he left her with wasn't comforting. Back in her room, she sat down by the window. She held her stomach gently, whispering to herself that everything would work out somehow. She didn't want to be afraid, but it was hard not to be. Her life had changed in a single moment, and now she had to face the days ahead not knowing how Rayan would respond. Still, deep inside, she hoped. She hoped he would find clarity. She hoped he would think not only about himself, but also about her and the child. She hoped he would return with calmness, understanding, and a plan that wouldn't make her feel alone. But as the sky turned dark that night, Amina knew that hope was all she had for now. Rayan had walked away with uncertainty in his eyes, and she had walked home with uncertainty in her heart, and the days ahead would show what kind of man he truly was. After Amina told Rayan the truth at the ranch, she spent the next few days in a strange mix of worry and silence. She expected him to come to her the next day, or at least send a message, but nothing happened. Every morning she woke up thinking, maybe today, he will talk. Every night, she slept with the same unanswered question. The silence made her uneasy. She wasn't angry, only confused. Rayan wasn't the type of man who ran away from responsibility. People always said he was dependable, a man who took quick decisions and stood by them. But now, when she needed clarity the most, he had disappeared behind his walls. Rayan, meanwhile, was struggling in his own way. When Amina had spoken the words, "I'm pregnant," his entire world had shifted. It wasn't that he didn't care. He cared more than he knew how to show, but he was frightened. Not of the child, he was frightened of society, of judgment, of whispers in the town, of questions he didn't know how to answer. He had always lived a quiet, disciplined life. He followed rules, stayed focused, and avoided trouble. But now, life had handed him a situation that didn't fit into any plan he ever made. For days, he threw himself into work even more than usual. He woke up earlier, checking the horses, inspecting the fences, guiding the workers, and fixing small things around the ranch. He kept himself busy to avoid thinking too deeply, but every quiet moment hit him harder. The thought of Amina alone, carrying this burden while waiting for him, pulled at him, Yet instead of facing it calmly, he panicked inside. He didn't talk to anyone, not even his closest worker, an older man named Bahadur who had known him since childhood. Bahadur noticed Rayan's unusual behavior, his rushing, his silence, his restless walking around the fields, but he didn't ask anything. He knew Rayan spoke only when he was ready. On the fourth day, just before sunset, Rayan finally picked up his phone. He stared at Amina's name for a long time, before pressing call. When she answered, her voice was soft but steady, like she had been expecting the call. "Amina," he said, his tone serious. "I need to meet you. We must talk." She agreed quietly and suggested a small cafe in town where they could sit away from curious eyes. Amina arrived early. She sat at a corner table, her hands folded, her heart beating fast. She wasn't sure what he would say, but she hoped he had calmed down and thought carefully about everything. She didn't want anger, she didn't want pressure, she only wanted understanding. Rayan walked in a few minutes later. He looked tired but determined. When he sat down, he didn't waste time with greetings or small talk. "We need to take action," he said immediately. Amina blinked in surprise. "Action? What do you mean?" "This situation. We can't let it get out of control," he said. His voice wasn't harsh, but it wasn't gentle either. It had the weight of fear behind it. Fear he was trying to hide under firmness. Amina felt her chest tighten. "Rayan, what do you mean by getting out of control?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "People will talk. You know how this town is. Once someone hears something, the whole market will start whispering. We must act fast, before it spreads." She stared at him. She had expected responsibility, maybe a plan for support, maybe a discussion about the future. She hadn't expected him to speak like this, panicked about society more than their reality. "Act fast how?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Rayan exhaled sharply. "We need to make decisions right away. We can't wait around. If we don't do something now, things will become complicated." Amina felt a sudden pressure in her throat. His words were rushing, not thoughtful. He wasn't asking her what she felt or what she needed. He was telling her how he wanted things handled. "Rayan, slow down, please. I'm still trying to understand everything myself," she said gently. He shook his head. "We don't have time to understand anything. This is serious. We must move quickly." "Man hurl Lydia. Top capted. Understand stated. Top capted. Top capted. Top capted. Top capted. Top capted. Top capted. Top capted." Amina felt a strange heaviness spreading across her chest. He wasn't seeing her fear. He wasn't seeing her confusion. He was seeing only his own anxiety. "Can you listen to me first?" she asked softly. "I am listening," he replied, but his tone made it clear his mind was already running ahead. She looked down at her hands, gathering courage. "Rayan, I need emotional support. I need peace. I need us to talk calmly about what to do together." He rubbed his forehead. "Amina, I'm trying to solve the problem. I just don't want things to go wrong, but you're making decisions without even asking what I want," she whispered. He froze. For a moment, he seemed to understand her words. But then his fear returned, and he shook his head again. "I don't have the luxury to think slowly. I have a ranch, a reputation, and responsibilities." Amina looked up, hurt reflecting in her eyes. "And what about me, Rayan? I have a life too. I have feelings. I'm part of this situation equally." The cafe grew quiet around them. Rayan finally looked directly at her. His eyes held confusion, not anger, not rejection, just confusion, mixed with panic. "I'm trying, Amina," he said, his voice lower. "I just don't know how to handle this. Amina realized then that he wasn't being cold on purpose. He was overwhelmed, scared of the future, and reacting the only way he knew, by taking quick action, even if it hurt her. But fear-driven decisions are rarely wise. The conversation ended without a clear solution. Rayan stood up, saying he would think more and come back with a plan. He didn't ask how she felt. He didn't ask what she wanted. He left with the same rush he had arrived in. Amina went home with tears she tried not to let fall. In the following days, Rayan began making sudden choices without informing her. He started visiting her house unexpectedly, asking questions in a sharp tone, like he was trying to control the situation. Sometimes he showed up early in the morning, other times at night, acting as if urgency justified everything. Amina, I spoke to someone. Amina, we need to decide this. Amina, don't talk to anyone about it. She felt like the weight on her shoulders was getting heavier. His rush, his pressure, his constant attempts to make everything happen quickly, it all suffocated her. Instead of feeling supported, she felt trapped. Instead of feeling comforted, she felt confused. Rayan wasn't a bad man, but he was lost in his fear. And when fear controls someone, they sometimes forget the hearts of others. Every time he left, Amina sat alone in her room, placing her hand on her stomach, whispering to her unborn child that she would stay calm no matter what. She didn't know how, but she had to. Meanwhile, Rayan was slowly realizing that his actions were pushing her away. He noticed the way she kept her distance, the way her eyes looked tired when he arrived, the way she avoided long conversations. It confused him, but he didn't stop. He convinced himself he was doing the right thing by moving fast, by deciding for both of them, by trying to fix everything as if it were a broken gate on his ranch. He didn't understand that human hearts couldn't be repaired with quick solutions. One evening, after another rushed discussion, Amina closed her door softly behind him and leaned against it. Her eyes filled with quiet tears. She wasn't weak. She was simply exhausted. She knew Rayan didn't mean harm, but good intentions mixed with panic could still cause hurt. She whispered to herself, I need to protect my peace. That night, for the first time, she felt a small shift inside her, a realization that she couldn't let someone else's fear control her. She had to think clearly for herself and her child. She didn't know yet what her next steps would be, but she understood one thing clearly. If Rayan kept taking decisions so quickly, without slowing down or listening, he would lose the chance to be part of her journey, and she would soon need to make a choice of her own. Amina's days slowly became heavier after Rayan began taking decisions without asking her. At first, she tried to understand him. She reminded herself that he was under pressure, that he was scared, that he didn't know how to express his emotions. But as the days passed, his sudden actions and unexpected visits began to affect her peace. She noticed that her heart would start beating fast every time she heard a knock at the door, worried that it might be him again, with another rushed plan or another decision she had no say in. She never wanted to avoid him, but his behavior made her nervous. Instead of feeling safe around him, she felt tense. One morning, she was sitting on the small wooden bench outside her house, enjoying the gentle breeze. For the first time in many days, she felt calm. The sky was clear, and the air smelled of fresh earth after a light drizzle the night before. She placed her hand on her stomach softly and whispered, Everything will be all right. But her peace didn't last long. Rayan arrived without warning, his boots leaving clear marks on the damp ground. He looked tired and worried, as if he hadn't slept properly. Amina stood up politely, but inside she felt the familiar pressure begin to return. Amina, we need to talk, he said quickly. She took a deep breath. Rayan, I haven't even had breakfast yet. There's something important, he insisted. I've been thinking, and we need to finalize some things now. Amina felt a quiet frustration rise inside her. Rayan, you keep saying we, but you don't really include me in the decisions. He frowned. I'm trying to protect you. She shook her head gently. Protecting someone doesn't mean controlling everything. He opened his mouth to argue, but then closed it. Instead, he paced for a moment like he was struggling with his own thoughts. I don't want things to get worse. Amina felt tired, not physically, but emotionally. She didn't want to fight. She didn't want to explain her feelings again and again. She wanted calm. She wanted support. She wanted someone who could stand beside her, instead of rushing in front of her without looking back. When Rayan left that morning, She realized something important: his fear was becoming her burden. As the days passed, she started to see how deeply his decisions affected her daily life. He would call her early in the morning, asking if she was following his plans. He would send messages late at night, reminding her of something he wanted her to do. He meant well, but the pressure was too much. Every message, every call, every knock at the door felt like another weight placed on her shoulders. Instead of peace, she felt worry. Instead of support, she felt pushed. One evening, she sat with her aunt, who noticed the tiredness in her eyes. Her aunt didn't know the reason behind it, but she gently placed a hand on Amina's shoulder and said, "Life tests us, but remember, no one has the right to take away your peace." Those words stayed in Amina's mind. The next time Rayan came to talk, she decided to speak honestly. He stood outside her home, explaining yet another rushed idea. She listened quietly for a while, then finally raised her hand gently to stop him. "Rayan," she said softly, "I need you to slow down." He looked confused. "Slow down? This isn't something we can take lightly." "I know," she said. "But you keep running so fast that you can't see how tired I am." "Tired?" he repeated, as if the thought had never occurred to him. Amina nodded. "Yes. Tired. You come with new decisions every day. You speak fast. You push me without asking if I'm ready. You're scared, but your fear becomes my burden." Rayan stared at her, unable to respond. Amina continued, her voice steady but gentle. "I need space. I need calm. I need to think. I need you to listen instead of rushing." For the first time, Rayan's face softened. He looked down at the ground, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I didn't realize." Amina gave a small, sad smile. "I know you didn't. But now you do." He left quietly that evening, not rushing, not planning, just thinking. Over the next few days, Amina purposely kept some distance. Not because she was angry, but because she needed to breathe. She needed time to understand her own feelings, and to think about what kind of future she wanted for her child. She began focusing more on her health. She ate on time, rested properly, and spent time with people who gave her peace. She started going for small walks in the evenings, enjoying the calmness of the sky and the softness of the earth beneath her feet. For the first time, she felt a sense of control. Meanwhile, Rayan struggled alone with his thoughts. He realized he had been acting out of fear, not responsibility. He thought about all the moments he rushed her, all the times he didn't listen. He remembered the look in her eyes when she had said she was tired. He remembered how her voice had trembled when she asked him to slow down. He sat on his porch one night, staring at the stars, and whispered to himself, "I should have listened." It was then that he felt regret, not because of the situation, but because he had hurt someone who trusted him. Someone who needed gentleness. Someone who deserved calmness. Not pressure. He wanted to fix things, but he didn't know how. He didn't want to show up again with another rushed plan. He didn't want to cause her more stress. For the first time, he felt truly unsure. Amina, on the other hand, felt a sense of strength growing inside her. She realized she didn't need someone to lead her life for her. She could decide her own path. She could protect her own peace. She could create a safe future for her child without relying on someone who didn't understand her heart. One morning, while sitting by the window with a cup of warm tea, she made a quiet decision. She would take control of her life again. She would no longer let fear hers or someone else's guide her choices. She didn't know how Rayan would react. She didn't know if he would accept her decision or fight it. But she knew this was the right step for her. That afternoon, Rayan came to see her, but she didn't feel the same pressure she used to feel. She opened the door with calmness in her eyes. He noticed the change immediately. "Amina, you look different," he said softly. "I feel different," she replied. He waited, sensing she wanted to say more. She took a slow breath. "I need to choose what's best for me and for my child. I can't follow rushed decisions anymore." Rayan's shoulders lowered slightly, as if he understood the gravity of her words. "I'm not pushing anymore," he whispered. I'm sorry for everything. Amina nodded, appreciating the sincerity in his voice. But she also knew that apologies didn't erase the past. She needed actions now, not decisions made for her, but respect for the decisions she made herself. That evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Amina felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: clarity. She didn't know exactly what the future would look like, but she felt strong enough to shape it. She felt brave enough to stand alone if she had to. And she understood that protecting her heart was just as important as protecting her child. Rayan, standing outside her door with regret in his eyes, had no idea what decision she was about to make, but she knew. And that decision would change the direction of her life forever. Amina spent the next few days thinking deeply about her future. She wasn't angry at Rayan anymore, but she had finally understood something important. Life doesn't wait for anyone to change. If she wanted peace, she had to create it herself. If she wanted stability, she had to make decisions with a calm mind, not a pressured heart. Rayan, on the other hand, felt the distance between them more clearly than ever. He didn't visit her as suddenly as he used to. He didn't call her repeatedly. He stayed quiet, giving her the space she had asked for. But every night he lay awake, wondering if he had already lost his place in her life. One evening, after many days of silence, Amina sensed that it was time to speak to him again, not because she needed him, but because she needed closure. She needed to explain her decision, so he wouldn't live with confusion or guilt forever. She went to the ranch at sunset. The sky was painted with soft orange and pink shades, and the air smelled of fresh hay. Workers were finishing their tasks, and the horses were slowly settling down for the night. Amina walked down the familiar path, her steps steady and calm this time. Rayan was standing near the fence, fixing a loose plank. When he looked up and saw her, his eyes widened slightly with surprise. He wiped his hands on his shirt and walked toward her slowly. "Amina, you came," he said softly. "Yes," she replied. "We need to talk." He nodded, understanding the seriousness in her voice. They walked to a quiet area behind the barn, where the evening breeze moved gently through the trees. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds preparing to settle for the night. Amina finally broke the silence. "Rayan, I want you to know that I never hated you. I was just overwhelmed. I was just overwhelmed. I was just overwhelmed." He lowered his gaze. "I know. I made mistakes. I moved too fast. I didn't think about your feelings." She gave a small nod. "You were scared, and I was scared too. But fear shouldn't control our actions." Rayan took a slow breath. "I wish I could go back and do everything differently. I wish I had listened to you from the beginning." Amina looked at him carefully. She could see the regret in his eyes. It wasn't fake. It wasn't forced. He had truly understood where he went wrong. But understanding didn't erase the past. It only helped guide the future. "I'm not here to talk about the past anymore," she said gently. "I'm here to tell you what I've decided." Rayan straightened slightly, bracing himself. Amina continued, her voice steady but warm. "I'm going to raise this child with peace. I'm not going to let stress or fear harm my heart or my baby. I need calmness around me, and I need to build a stable life, not a rushed one." He swallowed hard. "And where do I fit into that?" Amina looked at him with honesty. "You can be part of this journey if you learn to slow down. If you learn to communicate calmly. If you respect my decisions and trust me to know what's best for me and our child." Rayan felt a spark of hope move through him. "I want to do that. I want to be better. I don't want to lose you." Amina smiled softly, not in excitement, but in acceptance. "I'm not asking you to change overnight. I'm only asking you to understand that this time, I will lead the pace of my life. I won't let anyone rush me again." He nodded slowly. "I understand, and I agree. I'll follow your lead." For the first time in weeks, Amina felt a sense of relief wash through her. She wasn't choosing to walk away from him completely, but she was choosing herself first. She was choosing her peace. her health, her child's well-being. And if Rayan truly wanted to be in her life, he would have to meet her calmly, patiently, and respectfully. They continued talking for a while, gently, slowly, without pressure. Rayan listened more than he spoke. He asked before giving opinions. He paused before reacting. He finally behaved like the partner Amina needed, not the one his fear had turned him into. But Amina didn't trust words alone. She watched his behavior carefully in the following days, and slowly, she saw a real change. He no longer showed up at her door suddenly. Instead, he would send a polite message first, asking if it was a good time to meet. If she said she needed rest, he respected it. When they talked, he didn't rush or push decisions. He asked her about her health, her day, her thoughts. He listened with gentle attention, something she had always hoped he would do. He even visited her aunt and politely asked what foods were good for Amina's health, wanting to support her quietly instead of controlling her loudly. Amina felt something soften inside her. She realized that people can change when they truly understand their mistakes. Not because she forced him to change, but because he chose to. Weeks passed, and Amina's belly began to show a gentle curve. She started experiencing new emotions, new joys, and new hopes. She started preparing for the child with excitement instead of fear. She bought little clothes, tiny socks, and soft blankets. Every small item made her smile softly. Rayan, meanwhile, took small steps to make her life easier. He repaired her house gate without being asked. He sent fresh fruits from the ranch. He made sure she never carried anything heavy. One evening, he walked her home after a visit and stopped outside her gate. The street was quiet, and the moonlight gently touched the rooftops. "Amina," he said quietly, "I know we're not the same people we were at the beginning of all this, but I want to be someone you can trust, not someone you fear." She looked at him, her eyes warm. "Trust grows slowly, Rayan," she said, "but I see your effort, and that means more than words." He smiled gently, gratefully. Over time, their bond became healthier. Not rushed, not pressured, just slowly built with understanding. They weren't perfect, but they were learning. Amina learned that she had the strength to protect her peace. Rayan learned that fear cannot guide a relationship, only respect can. Months passed, and the day finally came when Amina held her newborn child in her arms. Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of joy, not worry. Her aunt sat beside her, whispering blessings. Rayan stood at a respectful distance, nervous but emotional, his eyes shining with pride and gratitude. Amina looked at her baby and whispered, "You came into this world with peace, and I will keep it that way." Rayan stepped closer, asking softly, "May I?" She nodded. He held the tiny child carefully, as if holding the most delicate gift in the world. His hands trembled, but his heart was steady. Amina saw something real in his eyes, not fear, not pressure, but love and responsibility. In that moment, she knew she wasn't alone anymore. Not because she needed someone beside her, but because she had chosen someone who respected her heart. Their journey had been difficult, full of mistakes and misunderstandings. But in the end, they had both grown. They had learned to communicate, to slow down, to understand each other deeply. Amina didn't regret her decision anymore, and Rayan understood something he never understood before. Sometimes the strongest move a person can make is not to act fast, but to pause, listen, and grow. And together, slowly, calmly, respectfully, they began a new chapter of their lives.